Welcome back to Ripple Labs fans and crypto warriors. You are watching XRP Insider, the channel where we break down the biggest crypto stories shaping the future of digital finance. Today's update is massive because something unusual is happening across the altcoin market right now. Big money is moving aggressively into altcoins again, but this time it is not random speculation. Investors are focusing on very specific projects, and the names leading this move are Zcash, XRP, and Dogecoin. Together, these three cryptocurrencies are becoming the center of attention as the altcoin market pushes above the psychological $1 trillion level again. That number matters because historically, when altcoins hold above this zone, the market enters a completely different phase of momentum and investor confidence. What makes this even more important is that institutional money, ETF inflows, macroeconomic events, and real-world adoption narratives are all aligning at the same time. This is no longer just retail hype. This is strategic capital rotation. And many analysts believe this could be the beginning of a much larger altcoin breakout cycle that could reshape the market during the rest of 2026. The crypto market has been waiting for a clear signal after months of uncertainty, consolidation, and fear surrounding global economic conditions. But now, with tensions in the Middle East beginning to cool and broader risk markets stabilizing, investors are starting to move back into higher risk assets. Bitcoin continues holding strong, but what is really grabbing attention is the behavior of altcoins. The Total2 index, which measures the market capitalization of all cryptocurrencies excluding Bitcoin, has climbed above the $1 trillion mark and stabilized there. That alone tells us something important. Traders are no longer only hiding inside Bitcoin for safety. They are beginning to spread capital into alternative assets with stronger upside potential. Historically, that is exactly how alt seasons begin. Money flows from Bitcoin into selected altcoins, and then momentum spreads across the market. But unlike previous cycles where meme hype dominated everything, this time each leading coin seems to have a completely different narrative driving its growth. Privacy, institutional adoption, and payment utility are becoming the main themes behind the current rally. Let's start with Zcash because this coin shocked the entire market over the last several days. ZEC exploded more than 70% in a single week and pushed above the $580 level. That kind of move immediately grabbed attention from traders and institutions alike. What makes the rally more interesting is that it is not only based on speculation. Reports revealed that nearly 30% of the total Zcash supply is now locked in shielded addresses. That means a huge portion of the circulating supply is becoming unavailable for exchanges, creating a supply shortage that is pushing prices higher. On top of that, Multicoin Capital, one of the most respected crypto investment firms in the industry, confirmed it has built a major position in Zcash. This is the same fund that famously bought Solana when it was trading below $1 years ago. So naturally, the market is paying attention. Investors are beginning to believe that privacy-focused cryptocurrencies may become extremely important again in a world where governments are increasing financial surveillance and discussing taxes on unrealized gains. Privacy is becoming valuable once more, and Zcash is suddenly sitting directly in the center of that conversation. Now, while Zcash brought explosive momentum and emotional excitement to the market, XRP played a very different role. XRP became the stabilizing force behind this altcoin breakout, because institutional interest surrounding the token is continuing to grow rapidly. According to recent reports, XRP ETF assets have now climbed above $1.09 billion, showing that large investors are increasingly comfortable gaining exposure to XRP through regulated investment products. Even more important, ETF inflows nearly tripled in just 24 hours, reaching over $11 million. That is not small retail money. That is serious institutional capital entering the ecosystem. Investors are especially focused on the upcoming May 21st deadline tied to the Clarity Act discussions in the United States. Many believe this legislation could provide long-awaited legal clarity for digital assets like XRP. And if that happens, XRP could finally break free from years of regulatory uncertainty that held it back compared to other major cryptocurrencies. XRP is no longer viewed simply as another speculative coin. Institutions increasingly see it as infrastructure for future global payments and liquidity solutions. What is especially fascinating about XRP right now is the technical structure forming on the charts. Analysts are pointing to a breakout above the median Bollinger Bands line around the $1.43 level. For traders who follow technical analysis, This is significant because it suggests the end of a long, 70-day consolidation period. Consolidations often build pressure like a spring, and once the breakout happens, price expansion can accelerate quickly. Some analysts now believe XRP has a realistic path toward the $2 level if current momentum continues. That number is becoming more than just a psychological target. On higher time frames, it lines up with critical resistance zones that could define the next major phase of the market. What makes the XRP story even stronger is that it combines technical momentum with regulatory optimism and institutional demand at the same time. Usually markets only get one of those catalysts. XRP currently has all three working together, which explains why many traders believe the coin may be preparing for one of its most important breakouts in years. At the same time, comments from David Schwartz are adding another layer of discussion to the XRP narrative. Schwartz recently responded to speculation online by saying he has always been clear about his views regarding XRP and digital assets. The crypto community pays close attention whenever Schwartz speaks because he is one of the original architects behind XRP and has deep knowledge of both blockchain technology and market psychology. He revealed in previous discussions that he once held massive amounts of crypto, including millions of XRP, thousands of Bitcoin, and tens of thousands of Ethereum. But he also admitted that he is naturally cautious when it comes to risk and often struggles emotionally with uncertainty. His comments remind investors that even people deeply involved in crypto innovation remain aware of the risks and unpredictability of the market. At the same time, his continued support for XRP reinforces confidence among long-term holders who believe the asset still has enormous untapped potential moving forward. One of the most surprising parts of this market rotation is the return of Dogecoin. For years, many investors dismissed Doge as just another meme coin with no serious future. But recent developments suggest that narrative may be changing quickly. Large holders accumulated more than 160 million additional Doge over just 4 days, adding to hundreds of millions already purchased earlier in the month. Whales do not usually accumulate at this scale without expecting something significant ahead. The major catalyst appears to be growing anticipation surrounding the launch of X Money, the payment system connected to Elon Musk's expanding vision for the X platform. Investors are beginning to speculate that Dogecoin could eventually become one of the main tools for microtransactions inside the ecosystem. If that happens, Doge would transition from being viewed purely as a meme asset into something with real payment utility used by millions of users worldwide. That possibility alone is enough to create enormous excitement across the crypto market. Dogecoin is suddenly being discussed in a completely different way than it was just a year ago. The ETF conversation around Dogecoin is also becoming more important. Reports indicate that spot Doge funds recently ended a long streak of zero inflow days and finally started attracting capital again. That may sound like a small detail, but in institutional finance, momentum shifts often begin quietly before exploding later. If investors start treating Doge as a legitimate speculative growth asset tied to payment infrastructure and social platforms, the entire perception of the coin could change rapidly. Traders are now watching the 200-day moving average closely because a breakout above that level could trigger another wave of buying pressure. What makes Dogecoin unique is that it combines internet culture, community energy, celebrity influence, and now potentially real payment utility all in one package. Very few cryptocurrencies have that kind of cultural power combined with mainstream visibility. That is why smart money appears increasingly interested, despite years of skepticism from traditional analysts. Another important factor driving the current altcoin breakout is the macroeconomic environment. Markets are closely watching upcoming U.S. economic data, especially the non-farm payrolls report expected later this week. This report often affects interest rate expectations and broader investor sentiment. If the labor market weakens slightly, traders may expect the Federal Reserve to become more flexible on monetary policy, which could support risk assets like crypto. At the same time, large financial institutions, including Morgan Stanley, are reportedly becoming more aggressive in crypto-related financial products and pricing competition. This tells us Wall Street is preparing for higher demand in digital assets moving forward. Institutional competition usually increases when firms believe there is long-term profit potential in a sector. Combined with geopolitical de-escalation and improving market sentiment, crypto is entering an environment where capital is once again willing to take risks. That shift matters enormously because liquidity is the fuel that drives every major bull market. What many people still do not fully understand is that this altcoin rally is not behaving like previous meme-driven cycles. Investors are being much more selective this time. Zcash represents privacy and scarcity. XRP represents legal clarity and institutional adoption. Dogecoin represents consumer payments and mass adoption potential. These are very different narratives, but together they reflect something larger happening in the market. Investors are searching for crypto projects tied to real-world use cases and long-term positioning rather than empty hype alone. That does not mean speculation has disappeared. Of course, speculation remains a huge part of crypto. But underneath the excitement, there is now a stronger focus on infrastructure, regulation, payments, and utility. That shift could make this cycle very different from the wild speculative mania we saw in previous years. At the same time, the psychology of the market is changing rapidly. Fear dominated crypto for a long time after multiple crashes, bankruptcies, and regulatory attacks. Many retail investors became exhausted and left the market entirely. But now, as prices stabilize and institutional interest grows again, confidence is slowly returning. When confidence returns, momentum follows. And when momentum meets liquidity, altcoins can move very quickly. That is why analysts are closely watching whether the Total 2 index can remain above the $1 trillion threshold. If it holds, many traders believe it could signal the beginning of a broader alt season, where capital spreads into mid-cap and smaller projects as well. Historically, these phases create some of the biggest gains in the crypto market, but they also come with extreme volatility and emotional swings that can catch inexperienced traders off guard. Another story quietly adding fuel to the market is the massive rally in Toncoin following major integration news connected to Telegram. Ton surged nearly 70% after reports that Telegram plans to become the network's largest validator, while significantly expanding its involvement in the ecosystem. Social mentions for Ton exploded, and the market reacted immediately. This matters because it reinforces the idea that crypto projects connected to major real-world platforms are gaining renewed attention from investors. Whether it is Telegram with Ton or X with Dogecoin, the market is increasingly rewarding cryptocurrencies tied to ecosystems capable of reaching mainstream users at scale. That trend could become one of the defining themes of the next crypto cycle. There is also growing discussion around whether privacy coins like Zcash could become one of the biggest surprise winners of the cycle. For years, privacy coins were heavily criticized and often ignored because regulators viewed them cautiously. But now concerns over financial surveillance, transaction monitoring, and digital control are becoming more mainstream conversations globally. In that environment, some investors believe privacy-focused blockchain technology may eventually see renewed demand. The fact that so much ZEC supply is moving into shielded addresses suggests long-term holders are becoming increasingly confident and are removing coins from active circulation. That creates supply pressure which can drive explosive price action when demand increases suddenly. Some analysts are even pointing to predictions from major industry figures who believe Zcash could eventually reach a valuation equal to 10% of Bitcoin's price one day. While those targets remain highly speculative, the market is clearly paying attention to the possibility. For XRP holders specifically, the next several weeks could become extremely important. Regulatory developments, ETF inflows, and technical breakouts are all converging at the same moment. If the Clarity Act discussions produce positive momentum for the crypto industry, XRP could benefit more than almost any other major asset because its entire story has been shaped by regulatory battles over the past several years. Investors are watching closely because legal clarity could open the door for broader institutional adoption, additional ETF products, and greater integration into global payment systems. Many believe XRP has spent years building quietly, while waiting for the regulatory environment to finally shift in its favor. If that shift truly begins happening now, the long-term implications could be enormous for both the asset and the broader crypto industry. Meanwhile, retail traders are once again starting to flood social media with altcoin predictions, breakout charts, and bold price targets. That always happens when momentum returns to the market. But experienced investors understand that hype alone is never enough. Sustainable growth usually requires narratives supported by liquidity, institutional interest, technological development, and real-world adoption potential. What makes this moment different is that all those ingredients appear to be lining up together across multiple projects at the same time. XRP has institutions and regulation. DOGE has mainstream culture and payment speculation. ZEC has scarcity and privacy demand. TON has social platform integration. These are powerful themes individually, but together they create a broader story that investors are finding increasingly difficult to ignore. As we move deeper into May 2026, the crypto market is entering one of the most fascinating periods we have seen in months. Bitcoin remains strong, altcoins are waking up, institutions are increasing exposure, and real-world adoption narratives are becoming stronger again. Of course, volatility will remain extremely high, and nothing in crypto is ever guaranteed. Markets can reverse quickly, especially around macroeconomic events and regulatory news. But right now, the energy inside the market feels very different from the fear and uncertainty that dominated earlier phases of the cycle. Smart money appears to be positioning aggressively, and history shows that when institutional liquidity, retail excitement, and strong narratives align together, crypto markets can move far faster than most people expect. So the big question now is simple. Is this truly the beginning of the next major alt season, or is it only a temporary breakout before another correction? That is what the entire market is trying to figure out right now. But one thing is becoming clear. XRP, Zcash, and Dogecoin are no longer sitting quietly on the sidelines. They are becoming the center of the conversation as capital rotates aggressively across the crypto space. And if momentum continues building from here, the coming weeks could become some of the most important weeks the altcoin market has seen in years. Let us know down in the comments which coin you believe has the biggest upside potential from here. Is XRP preparing for a massive breakout? Can Dogecoin evolve into a true payment giant? Or will Zcash shock the market even more with another explosive move? Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for XRP Insider, because the crypto market is moving fast, and you do not want to miss what comes next.